friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, I'm here today to answer a question that I got on why don't we move from here. So for those of you who are new to my channel, we live in Forks, Washington. So I did do a video, I think maybe 2 years ago, about why we live in Washington State, why we stay despite all the crud going on. But this was more specific to the fact of all the rain that we put up with here. Now, a lot of people who live on the other side of the United States, or maybe anywhere else in the world, assume if they hear anything about Washington State, they assume that all of Washington State is very wet and rainy, when it's absolutely not true. There's actually parts of Washington State, like where I grew up, that are very dry and deserty and may only get about 10 inches of rain annually. But if you move to the west side of the mountain range, the west side of Washington State can be very wet. But even within the west side, it still can vary the amount of rain you get depending on your location. Most places around the west side of the mountain range, especially in the northern part of the west side, get about 50 to 60 inches of rain annually. So that's going to include places like Seattle, Olympia, etc. However, where we live, not far from a rainforest, we get a low average of 120 inches of rainfall each year. And that can be as much as 160 inches of rainfall in a year. And we do get a lot of that within about a 6 to 9 month period of time. We do have decent summers, but that rainfall can be quite challenging. It can be challenging to one's mental health. It can be challenging when it comes to having gardens and chickens and the like. But like with any area, there's going to be the good and the bad that goes right along with it. So to answer the question, why do we stay, especially someone who was born and raised in a very dry climate, I'm going to answer that. And I will say, when I first moved here, before I even met Patrick, actually, I didn't move here, I came to visit. There's a long story there, and if you're interested in why I ended up staying here when I only came to visit for a week or two, I'll put that video in the description box down below. It's too long of a story to go into here. Anyway, I did meet Patrick about a month maybe after I had been here. And at that time, I was wanting to go back to where I came from. But eventually, I learned to really love it here. During the part of the year where the rain is at its heaviest and the skies are at their darkest, I'm not going to say I always love it, but most of the time, I don't mind it, or I actually do love it. There's something about stormy weather that can make us feel cozy and comfortable in what we've got set up here, and being a little more, not completely, but being a little more off-grid, or having backups for those very many power outages we get because of all the rain, winds, and tall trees. That's the combination of the three is what tends to cause the power outages around here. The rain saturates the ground, loosens up the roots of the tall trees, and then the heavy winds come through and blow them down onto the power lines. So most commonly, that's what's going on. But here's one thing about all that rain that is such a blessing. And by the way, before I continue, I might have already put a couple pictures in here. Most of the pictures I'll be including in here are from a local photographer by the name of Matthew Nichols. I use his work a lot in my videos because he lives here. He appreciates the beauty of this area and knows how to properly catch it. Though he doesn't have a ton of photos of how cloudy it can get, there are a few. Most of them he takes on clear days and nights, but he does take some when it's dark and cloudy too. So anyway, I'll link to his website. I know he sells calendars. If his website's still up, I'll link to that, or at least his Facebook page. So you can check out more there. But anyway, yeah, he just does an excellent job of just showing the beauty of our area here. Anyway, because of all the rainfall, water supply is really not an issue for us. So we do have a rainwater catchment system, and we use that for anything that we're going to ingest. We're still on public water just because we're not set up yet to have the water come directly to our house, so it's water that we pack. And I have videos on the water system and the storage, because I store all the water that's been filtered into glass jugs. But anyway, that's the water we consume. We use it for cooking, baking, coffee, tea making, and just drinking as is. And then the city tap water we use for washing dishes, washing clothes, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, if we absolutely had to, we could make it work with the amount of rain we have. But we do have dry times of the year, remember. The summer, we can actually have times where even the city wells are starting to get low, which is crazy. But most of the time, because of our backup water source, that's just not a concern for us. I can water my garden with it all summer long and not run out of water. There's that. But also because of the amount of rain we get, there's things that grow here that won't grow for other people or grow as well. Or some people have to work hard to get them to grow. Just like I had to do a lot to get mullein to grow here because it doesn't typically like the kind of rainfall we get. Some people might have to work hard and do all this special stuff to get blackberries to grow in their area. Where that's not a concern here. We don't intentionally grow blackberries because we don't have to. They grow wild. On our other piece of property are the ones that we just let grow wild. I do have some here on this piece, and the only reason I even have those is they were the thornless variety that was gifted to me from my brother-in-law. So they were a gift. And though they're not as tasty as the wild ones most of the time, I do love having them here. And there's other berries that grow quite well once you get the right variety and know where to plant them, like raspberries, currants. Currants just do excellent. Always get far more currants off of the few bushes I have than I can ever use. Blueberries do quite well. There's a lot of things. Oh, zucchini. Zucchini loves the fact that we get lots of moisture. And there's many other things that do quite well here. And so along with that, all the rest of the gardening, like growing the mullein and some of the various other things I grow that don't typically like really wet climates, like rosemary, I found ways. It's taken me years to discover the best way and place to grow some of these things so that I can get plenty. And once I finally figured out the trick for me for growing rosemary, I will never be without rosemary because now it grows like a weed. Though it took me years to get to that point because it was finding just the right place where it could get both enough sun, but not all the rain that would drown it out every winter. No matter how loose the soil was, no matter how well draining the soil was, it was still too much rain. So yeah, we've done a lot. And I know that if we were to move to a drier climate, I would basically have to start all over and learning how to grow a lot of different things that we grow now. Oh, also our grapes, surprisingly, I didn't think grapes would like the little sun we get here. Grapes do quite well here. Certain varieties do quite well here. Some wouldn't, but some do. So we get plenty of grapes every year. And on top of the fact that we've worked hard to build what we have here. And though we had thoughts of moving several times, because we've worked so hard to really develop our infrastructure here and then on our other two pieces of property, that we'd be giving up a lot of work that we put into this just to move to a drier climate because we want a little more sun. When we can make it work just fine where we're at. We just have to learn how to work around some of the things that people never have to worry about. I like the fact that where we live is a very remote town, far from any large city, quite a ways from any large city. You know, we're kind of in this no man's land area. A lot of people come through here because they want to visit the whole rainforest or because it's, became a tourist town due to the Twilight series. Thankfully, that's died down some, but most people don't want to move here because most people don't know how to handle the rain. They think they do. They think they love rain, or maybe they come from Seattle even and, oh yeah, we know what rain is like. And then they come here and realize, no, this is nothing like Seattle. This is too much. And just like with me, it took a long time to really adjust, but you do learn to love it. And so, but because of that, you know, our town will probably never grow really huge. And I like that. There was a time I wanted to go back to the big city, but I've learned to really love living in a small town and being so far away from the big cities and their influence. And then, of course, there's the beauty of this area, as you've been seeing in some of these pictures. It is beautiful here. Where I grew up in Wenatchee, I always thought it was real pretty there, and it is. And I remember thinking that we had a lot of greenery there. I grew up right along Columbia River, pretty much, and so it's, you know, there are greener areas. But after living here for a while and then going back to visit Wenatchee, I'd be like, wow, I don't remember it being this dry and deserty here. To me, there's like the mountains look so bare. And you come here and everything is green all year round because of our area. It's just mostly evergreens around here. And so we got plenty of greenery and it stays lush and beautiful. And then when the sun does come out, you appreciate it far more than I ever did growing up in Wenatchee. And I love to be in the sun, but I appreciate it more now because I don't take it for granted when we have it. And so, and then that sun comes out and it shines on all the beautiful lushness of our area. And it's an amazing, beautiful area. But there's always, no matter where you live, there's always going to be a certain price you got to pay to live there. If you prefer really dry climates, well, you got to pay the price of maybe having limited water, maybe things that like to have water not growing so well. There's always a price to pay. And so what matters most to you? And here's one of the things that does definitely matter most to me, which is a top priority, is my family is here, my nucleus family. My kids live here and my 4 grandbabies live here. If we were to move away, I'd be leaving all of that behind. And I know a lot of people do that, but that's not something I want to or am willing to do. I want to stay close to my grandchildren. I want to be able to sustain a good relationship with them, but also be another source of a positive influence in their life, to be able to show and teach them some of the things that we do here, to be more self-sufficient, and with the hopes to instill that same desire in them as well. And so that is important to me. Living in a dry climate is way down here on the bottom of my priorities when it comes to my grandbabies. And also being here for my adult children as well. If they need anything, just to be a support to them. And just like watching my grandbabies when they need us to. And in fact, that's what I do about 5 days a week. I'm watching grandchildren. And I'm glad that I can be here for them in that way. So these are just some of the reasons why we choose to stay here, even though we've had thoughts over the years, especially when our kids were young and still lived with us. There were a couple times we were almost thinking about moving, but for some reason, God wanted us to stay here because none of those things came to fruition. And there's a reason why we're here. So anyway, that's my story there. Don't forget to check out the videos I'll be linking to in the description box down below if you want to know a little bit more about my background, how I ended up here. So don't forget to click on more or show more somewhere down here below the video screen to find those links. And if you've got any thoughts you'd like to share, like maybe about where you live and why you stay where you're at, what is it you love about your area? Share your challenges if you want. Is it worth it to stay where you're at? And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.